welcome once again to EWTN's Bookmark. I'm Doug Keck, your host. This is a special one. It's a media bookmark with Justin Fatica and Father Peter John Cameron O.P. talking about Hard as Nails ministry. Justin,
how's it
great
going,
to
Doug?
see
Great
you
to
again.
see you again. Pumped to see you.
Great to see you, Doug. Father, as always.
Pleasure.
Now, this is an interesting combination for us because in some ways, back in 2011, you were on Bookmark out of your amazing whole Hard as Nails and that particular book, and you were here also talking about a book as well. And now, many years later, you've come together, but from a very interesting juxtaposition in the sense of a Hard as Nails ministry, and most people know you from Magnificat.
Yes.
Which people don't think about it being hard or nails. How did this come together, Justin?
Well, and I think it was at Quinnipiac University, Father came up to me and said, "Oh, I saw your HBO movie." And at that time, I was getting rejected. You know, I was in a journey that wasn't easy, bringing the gospel of Jesus Christ to the world, which is my goal, to get people to accept Christ. And I was all excited about it, but a lot of people, especially in the church at the time, weren't as excited. And Father Peter's like, "I love that movie." I was like, wow. And I said, well, I'm looking for a spiritual director, but I need somebody who really can help me out, somebody to be there for me. And he said, well, call me and I'll see if I can help you. And it started there. I think it was 9 years ago, where whether it was every week or once a month, at least once a month, every week, sometimes 3 times a week, Father's been with me through thick and thin, helping me through this, challenging me, cajoling me, encouraging me, but showing me the love of the Father. And it's been great since then.
So, Father, what did you see in that HBO documentary that connected with you, that made you want to reach out to Justin?
I saw this young believer, this young man, this young father, completely on fire for God. I mean, I was seeing the way that this young man could speak about Jesus Christ and evangelize and turn people's lives around. I was so moved by it. Not only did I want to meet this young man, but I thought, I want to be like him. I want to be able to speak and preach about the gospel and really bring the gospel to people with the same conviction and the same passion. So I was so happy when I had a chance to meet Justin.
Now, it's interesting, too, because Justin indicated kind of his style's a little bit different, even when he first came to EWTN, and we had him on a Bookmark, and we were talking about the fact that he didn't carry a pipe with him, and he wasn't wearing a smoking jacket and looking like an English professor when we were doing this interview. So I'm wondering, Father, what did your confreres think when you were like all on fire for what Justin was doing? Did they see that same thing, or were they kind of like, I'm not so sure? Well,
it was actually a Dominican confrere who introduced me to Justin, Father Jonathan Kalish, said, you know, I'm bringing him in, he's going to do this event where I'm the chaplain, and there's this documentary. So he said, do you want to sit down and watch it with me? So the whole time, it was really a kind of a fraternal experience, because I was saying to Jonathan, I don't believe this guy. I didn't know there was somebody like this in the world. So it's, yeah.
So you sui generis, where did you come from?
Look, I gave my life to Christ, and bottom line is this, is that he saved my life, Doug. And if someone saves your life, you'll do anything, anything you can to make sure people know that Jesus is the answer. And it was through my Catholic faith, which has been the greatest gift for me to keep as a foundation. This is some just Joel Osteen experience and then it's done. This isn't some, just evangelist. This is an evangelist with great saints behind us. We can do something that can change the world through the power of Jesus Christ. I believe that since I was 17. And it hasn't been an easy road, that's for sure, but here I am.
Well, when you did that particular HBO movie as well, there was also people in the secular world who would look at it and they wonder, and probably inside the church after as well, is this a show? Is this guy for real? Especially as you were mentioning another evangelist, not him in particular, but some of the other ones in the past who have been shown to not be maybe quite as real as they appeared on television. How did you deal with that?
Well, thank goodness I have the saints. Thank goodness I have somebody like Mother Angelica, who I read her story and saw the rejection she faced when she was a little girl. How about that? And she didn't give up. She didn't cower. She didn't say, oh, this is hard for me. I looked at other examples and said, you know what? We got to do this. And as my father taught me when I was a kid, he said, if it's not tough and it doesn't hurt, son, it doesn't count. I called him up one time saying, Dad, this is tough. And he said, son, I taught you to do the hard thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you that with that too, Father, the idea that, you know, I remember one time when my wife and I decided to come to work at EWTN and we moved down from New York, and a friend of mine said, well, why can't you just do that marriage encounter thing on the weekends like you were doing before? Why do you have to turn your whole life upside down? Did anybody say to you, well, Father, why don't you just stay here and continue to be the chaplain? Why do you need to change your whole life? I mean, are you going to get on the bus?
I hope so.
Okay.
I'm the biggest advocate of the
bus. Are you going to drive the bus? Have you got a license yet?
No, we've got a professional driver we hire.
Oh, the Holy Spirit doesn't drive your bus? I thought you were going to tell me that. I mean, come on.
I hope my life, but not the bus.
Okay.
We got to deal with natural order here.
Okay.
I try to be a realist, and here's the thing. I'm 60 years old, and so I've been spending most of my life as a priest dealing with books. I would like to spend the rest of my life dealing with souls, dealing with persons. And I happened to mention this to a bishop who's a friend of mine. I said, yeah, I'm 60 years old. I don't know how many years of juice I have left. And without missing a beat, he said, you have 15 years. I was like, okay, I don't know how you got that calculus, but, you know, I'm going to trust you.
That's when they have to retire.
I guess, but no, you're saying it to me.
Oh,
I only
yeah.
have
75 is when a bishop retires, so I guess that's how they calculate the juice these days. But that's interesting, too, because how does those two things come together? Because as a church, it is about learning and understanding, and it's also about action and experience. It's not one or the other, right?
Correct. And that's why we got a shot, Doug. We got a shot to help evangelize this country and this world with Father Peter, John Cameron, myself. Now we've got Peter, Paul. We've got a Dominican priest here who understands the church and how it works. And we're going to bring so many people to the faith. I think we got a shot to do something in the church that I hope can be a miracle.
Now, Hard as Nails ministry, I mean, obviously it looks like it's geared towards younger people. Is it geared towards men? And also, is it geared towards those inside the church who need to be revitalized, or a little bit of everything?
Well, let me tell you something. Have you ever suffered, Doug? Have you ever suffered?
If I haven't, then I'm the most unique person in the world, so of course I've suffered.
So if you're out there listening, or you're out there wondering what Hard as Nails is about, it's to teach the world to suffer well. The pain that we see. I was just at a public school. I speak in about 10 to 15 public schools, and then we invite them to the church in the evenings. I just consoled, hugged, cried with our missionary team, who are character coaches in the public school, because we can't call them missionaries.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. Okay. Over 30 kids saying, I have bipolar and I'm lonely. I don't have a dad. Over 50 kids saying that, guess what? I was abused. Where are we going to take them? We're going to just keep saying that counseling's the answer? Counseling helps. Okay, I'm not saying it doesn't help. But I think Jesus is the answer, Doug. I think our church has confession. It's free. It doesn't cost a boatload of money to take someone to confession. Our ministry is about suffering souls like me and you are. And the greatest thing ever happened to me was getting rejected, Doug, because guess what? It helped me to understand that's what people in America are going through. That's what, once the shooting happens, that people are like, what do? We got to take it to Jesus Christ. I think we're for all people who are suffering.
Well, Father, you tend to run into the situation where, Justin's talking about it, and from a Catholic perspective, and certainly Mother Angelica, the idea of what's suffering and how you use it in a sense. But our culture really focuses on, I'm coming to you so that you can relieve my suffering, so that my suffering will go away. And if you can't do that, then what's the point of religion?
This is why Justin says that our mission really is to teach people to suffer well and to accompany them in their suffering, because it's ludicrous, because it has nothing to do with reality to think that I can make suffering go away. The moment I fall in love with someone, the moment I have a relationship, a friendship with someone, suffering enters in, because here's the thing. If you're my friend, I don't ever want you to go away. I don't ever want to lose you. And if I lose you, I'm going to suffer. So it's not possible to love without there being this other partner in the relationship, which is suffering. But many people look upon suffering as a curse, as an affliction, as a punishment. It's not. It's a gift from God. It's precisely the way to the happiness and to the fulfillment and to the peace and to the joy that we're always looking for in life. But so many people have this misconception of what suffering is. And so that's what we want to do. We want to slay that dragon, which is, understanding suffering in an inadequate way. Your suffering is not your value. Your suffering leads you to your value.
Amen.
Your suffering shows you your dignity. Your suffering is what sets you free. And that's why it's hard as nails, because we're going to embrace that cross with the same intensity that Jesus Christ embraces it, and he needs help. You know, he needs these nails. And we're going to be the helpers for these people who are suffering to really stand with their suffering all the way to the resurrection. And the thing is, it happens.
Yeah. And where does passion come? Is passion some feeling, some moment that's gone? People are like, stop getting excited about the gospel. People are like, oh, could you tone it down a little bit? Tone down what? That somebody doesn't have a dad? Seriously. Like, well, I'm going to forget about it and pretend it's not there? No, everyone needs God the Father. And our ministry is about, and why we work with youth a lot, this is why. Because they get it. They get it, Doug. They get that youth have an opportunity to awaken adults to the power of God's love. That's why I work with you. I'll be, sure, I'm getting older, but we have a young adult missionary program that Father's going to be a formator to help us with. That, we're going to work with.
Which people can go to your website and find out about
they
it.
can check out to be a
all the
missionary.
information about
we have over
those
80
kinds of
that will
things.
apply this year.
Right. When somebody comes to you and they want to be a missionary, what are the kinds of young people? What are they looking to accomplish and do? What attracts them?
I think they want to cry with people. They want to accompany someone because there was that priest out there, there was that daily mass goer they met, there was that grandmother who prayed and prayed for their grandson or granddaughter and said, please, be there for my grandson or granddaughter. And they come because they had somebody that accompanied them. They're saying, look, Justin, hey, I want to help. I want to show people they're amazing regardless of what they went through. Isn't that what we need in this country? To know and be known that what we've been through matters.
Let me ask you, is there a difference then in the way you think about you're amazing and you're valued by God and having good self-esteem?
Oh, huge difference.
How
Huge
so?
difference. Why? Because the reason I'm amazing is for one reason, the cross. The cross. Jesus died for me. I look up and go, you did that for me? That's what makes me amazing. That God the Father could love us so much. So much. Say, I love you, Doug. I love you. You know why you're amazing? Not because you're so good looking. Not because you had this experience and look the change Doug Keck made. You're amazing because guess what? God loved you to send his only son to die for you. I wouldn't send my sons to die for you in that way. I got 4 sons. No way. I'm that amazing. Can you believe it? God loves me, and he loves you, and he loves all people. We need to get this message back in America, because guess what? Africa's got it, and their country's got much more joy. India, because of Mother Teresa's efforts, because the Hindu people caring for people in suffering, even though they don't even understand the true message of Jesus Christ. Let me tell you what, India has joy. I've been there. We got to get that back, that joy back, like in the Great Depression, that nothing can stop this country, Doug, if we have Jesus Christ.
Well, let me ask you, he brought up joy. Where is the joy? Why is the joy gone? If we have the truth and we have Jesus Christ himself in the Eucharist on a daily basis, if we'd like, where's the joy?
Because joy is the response of the heart to a credible promise of life. And many people are not given a credible promise of life. From the way that they live their lives, from the people that populate their lives, because their lives are so much entrenched in addictions and so many practices that are not life-giving. But when you meet a joyful person, then it's infectious. And this is why the missionaries are so important to the Heart as Nails ministry. And, I would say that they come because they really understand something that St. Paul says so beautifully in the second letter to the Corinthians. He says, we want to console one another with the same consolation that we've received. These missionaries are not all bionic. They're not like superhuman. They're not all Olympic gold medal winners. They're broken people.
And they're not perfect.
Who have,
far from it.
Right. They're not perfect. They're broken. They they've suffered, they've been afflicted, and they have set on fire. And people say, well, how can you be this joyful?
Right.
Because the thing is, there's only one thing that can't coexist with joy, and that is fear. And as long as we're fearful, the only thing that we're going after, we're not going after love, we're going after power, because we're trying to find a way to combat this fear that keeps coming after us. But when we're joyful, which comes from really trusting, and the trust comes from someone who stands in front of us and says, yes, it's worth to take this risk, we can do anything. And even if our life is ripped apart like Jesus Christ is on the cross, as Bishop Aaron says, he's the happiest man in the world when he's dying on the cross. Why? Because everything about his life is cradled in the arms of his Father.
So when you're dealing with these broken people yourself, or your missionaries are out there, to some degree you're dealing with a situation where people grew up in broken homes, or divorced, or abused, and things like that. So they have real problems. But sometimes you get into a situation where today people would say, well, you're just blaming the victim. See, you're saying it's not their fault, etc. But there's a bridge there, isn't there, in identifying a situation that's true beyond their control, but then saying, where do we move on from there, right?
Yeah, and anybody who's counseling anybody, even in the professional counseling world, will tell you this if you study it. The number one reason people go to counseling is because they haven't forgiven. They haven't said, that's not my fault. It was wrong what was done with me, but that person has no power over me. I need to forgive them. And most people can't forgive them. Why? Because they don't have that credible witness to say, Father, forgive them. They know that's our credible witness, the King of the universe, Jesus Christ, saying, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. Number one, we want them to know that it's in forgiveness. Forgiving that person, moving on. That's number one. And number two, it's that, guess what? Jesus could have said he was a victim, but he wasn't. He was victorious. And how was he victorious? And this is the key. And this is the key element that Americans have a hard time understanding. Do we live for earth, or do we live for heaven? Most people live for earth. Now, if you're living for earth, if you have an earth's mentality, in my first book, Win It All, I talk about this. You need a heaven mentality. And when you keep your eyes fixed on heaven, nothing can stop you.
Right. Well, the Budweiser mentality. You only go around once, grab all the gusto while you can, basically, that kind of message. But even sometimes, Father, in the church today, though we might say, yes, we're living for heaven, basically it seems like we're all going there anyway, so as long as I'm not a terrible person, why can't I kind of enjoy things here too? Doesn't God want me to live an abundant life while I'm here?
Well, this is sort of the heresy of the 21st century, that, God really doesn't care, etc. But what is an abundant life? I know people that have all the money they could want, all the privilege they could want. St. Thomas Aquinas says, everyone, to be a human being is to be born with this sort of hole in your heart, and we try to fill it. He says there are 4 things you use to try to fill it: pleasure, possessions, power, and popularity. Bishop Barron talks about this in the Catholicism series. And the thing is, okay, so you can try to amass as many possessions and get as much pleasure and be as powerful and as popular as you can. Will it ever be enough? The answer is no, because the only thing that this hole can be satisfied by is something infinite, because it's made by someone infinite. It's made by God for God. So the abundance is really in giving myself to another. This is the definition of happiness. It's handing myself over for the good and for the happiness of another.
Right, and it's interesting you say that because of, if we see, especially some of the younger Hollywood types out there, who just flame out and fall apart, because in many ways they've achieved all those things at a very young age, and they've come to realize this doesn't do anything. So what's left?
Right. For sure. And I think what's most important to know is that I have 5 kids, and people think there's no hell. What I want anyone, now I'm a human, I'm a nothing. So me saying this, I'm saying hopefully humbly, but what I want anyone in my heaven that hurt my kids and didn't care. That's the difference between the sheep and the goats. the sheep and the goats. The sheep are the one who care. And you know what? I'm going to be frank. The church hurts people. People in the church hurt people. And we can't be those people. We have to be the people. And the people of the world hurt people. And whether you're in the world or you're in the church, the bottom line, you could be in the church and be a goat. You could be in the church and be a sheep. But the bottom line is, do we care about God's kids? Come on. We've got to dig down deep inside and ask ourselves, how much do we care about his kids? All the way to eternity. And I hope when I die, my Father will look at me and say, son, you know, I know you weren't perfect, you need Jesus to die for you, but guess what? I'm proud of you, son, because you cared about my kids. You cared about it. I'm going to show you, because that says he's going to show us the bad and the good. And so I hope that's what we can do.
And so when you go out there and your missionaries are dealing, and so much of it is dealing with this kind of brokenness, where people don't have the intact families that maybe they used to have, albeit they weren't perfect in the 1950s either, but there was a certain benefit in them being intact, something that society seems to want to ignore today, even though all the sociological studies actually support how much damage is being done by these families collapsing. So when you're dealing with these young people, what is their perspective on the faith? Has their faith been destroyed or damaged because with the Father in heaven and their own father, or they just don't trust because they thought they could trust their mother, their father, maybe even the church at some point, and everybody's let them down?
Well, my daughter is a perfect example of this. When I hang out with my daughter, I always say, if God loves me anything like my daughter, I want to meet that guy. I want to meet that guy. And this is the experience they're having with us. They meet that missionary. They'll meet somebody like Father Peter, hopefully myself, with our team. And they're not focused on, they're focused on the relationship of who they met. So they're like, if I meet anyone, if your God, that Jesus you're talking, that church, that Catholic faith you're talking, is anything like this person right here,
Exactly.
I'll do anything for it.
Because faith is acknowledging a presence that changes you. So when we go to these people, and especially you mentioned the flamed out Hollywood types, when we go to someone like that, what they experience is, wow, you care about my life more than I care about my life. How can that be? Because you don't want anything from me, and you just there's just love. There's just the gaze of someone I never met before.
And you've worked in the theater area for many years, so I'm sure you have some experience with people.
Yes, and it's cool when you see, you know, sort of hardened people turn around and say, really? You don't want anything from me, but you're just interested in me for me? Which is one of the reasons why we do Block
But isn't that
theater.
the big problem many times today? Again, that whole trust thing is everybody thinks there's got to be another motive. There's something else underneath this. You're trying to fool me. You're going to take advantage of me. I have to protect myself. When I get married, I have to have a prenuptial agreement. I don't want to make a commitment because I'm afraid you're going to let me down.
Well, this is why we need human formation. Heart formation. Not feeling formation, but truth formation. So we can become people that aren't duplicit, as Jesus said to Nathanael. That's why I respect about you. You're not duplicit. When people can be trained, and that's what our missionaries and Father and I are forming them in, and he's been helping the past 2 or 3 years with that, and now he'll help full time as the ecclesial liaison and the director of formation for our ministry. When we can form them and not having any guile, can you imagine when they meet these kids? And there's something going on in this because bishops are coming to us and going, man, can you help me understand this more?
Well, let me ask you, just so all of our audience can understand it more, as far as Heart as Nails Ministry, go to your website, we put it up on the screen.
RememberYourAmazing.com.
What exactly, I mean, what do you offer? What can people find out about just before we go?
Well, the great gift is we offer an invitation in many formats. We have the one thing Father and I are working on is, which already the largest parish in the country, St. Matthews in Charlotte, North Carolina, has reached out to us. People are excited about this, and many others, parishes and all over the country have reached out to us for what's called the You're Amazing Family Parish Mission. We have a K-5, 6 to 8, 9th to 12th. We have a parent session, and then the old school parish. So we can go in. You're like, what are you going to do as you get older? Everybody keeps, what do you mean we're going to do? The missionaries are doing it. I'm forming them. I've known how to do that. They're going to work with K to 5. They're going to work with 6 to 8, 9 to 12. And then I can work with the parents. And then Father can work with the church members. And we go into a parish and we can impact that whole town, the whole city. That's one thing we offer, which is what Father Peter and I are working on together as a team.
Okay. Well, people can go to the website, find out
Go.
all about it. We just
Go for it. Get
scratch the
excited.
surface as always.
Go for it, Doug.
It's a rough surface, but it's a surface. Thank you so
All
much,
right.
Justin and Father Peter John
Love you.
Cameron. This has been a Bookmark special on the Hard as Nails ministry. These guys are for real. Check it out. And join us next time right here on EWTN's
guy's a
Bookmark.
character.
We'll see you next time. Thanks.